by the chairman, followed by a question and answer session that will be moderated by the chairman as well. And we'll take our announcements and closing remarks by the president-elect and vote of thanks by the president of NAPE. So let's have our safety moment. Mr. Akinfemiwa Akinrimola, are you with us?
Yes, good morning, Damilola. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today's safety moment is not just timely, it's very important. As we are fully in the rainy season, we'll be looking at key safety precautions to follow when driving in the rain to protect ourselves, passengers, and other road users. Okay, so the first we'll be looking at here is slowing down. This is very important. Rain reduces traction, so you always need to reduce your speed when you're driving in the rain. It gives you more control. Second one is turning on headlights. Headlights help you see, and then for other road users to also see you clearly. They are not just meant for nighttime. In any condition where there is low visibility, especially when it rains, you want to turn your headlights on. The next on our slide is maintaining safe distance. Like I said earlier, rain reduces traction, so your braking may take longer on wet roads. So you want to increase your following distance from your car to the next to about 4 to 5 seconds. Avoid sudden movements when driving in the rain. Having a quick turn or braking can cause hydroplaning, where your tires are not having a firm grip on the road, but rather on the water. So you want to brake and steer gently, avoiding sudden movements. You also want to check your wipers and tires. If they are not in good condition, they can be a major hazard. Make sure they are in good shape as you make your trips. Watch out for hydroplaning. If you skid, you want to stay calm. Don't just slam on the brakes. Just gently ease off the accelerator and then steer straight. Lastly, we are all advised to stay alert. We know poor visibility puts everyone at risk. So you want to watch out for pedestrians and motorcycles who are usually very difficult to see in the rain. So I'll close by saying, the raining weather is beyond our control, but safe driving is within our power. So let's remember, it's better to arrive late than not at all. Stay safe out there, everyone. I'll be standing by if you have any questions or comments. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Femi. Do we have any questions on the safety moment before we move on to our next? All right, thank you, Femi. We do not have any questions for you. So we'll like to recognize the presence of our president, Mr. John Bosco Uche, FNAPE. We'll also like to recognize the presence of the president-elect, Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi, FNAPE, and we'll also like to acknowledge and recognize the presence of Ms. Dr. Victor Ogujiofo, FNAPE, who is actually here with us in person. You're very welcome, sirs and ma. Thank you for joining us today. We'd like to recognize our chapter executives, Mr. Edward Oza, the chapter coordinator, Mr. Ugochukwu Ogamba, the deputy chapter coordinator, the general secretary, Mr. Izundu Igbo, the financial secretary, Mr. Danlami Bawa, our advisory council member, Mr. Ekpe Ukam, the PRO, Mr. Steven Saku, our assistant general secretary, Folajimi Obanla, the YP coordinator, Darlington Omorua, and our editor-in-chief, Dr. E.G. Maju. We acknowledge and celebrate your efforts to keep pushing the Benin chapter forward, and we thank you for your service. So now we'll like the chapter coordinator, Mr. Edward, to, okay. So I'll just take the brief bio of the chairman for today's event, Professor Anidiobong Upong. Professor Anidiobong Upong is a professor of geology. He holds a Ph.D. in biostratigraphy and exploration geology from the prestigious University of Calabar, Nigeria. He started his professional career as an assistant micropaleontologist in South Sea Petroleum Consultants Port Harcourt in 1998 after his NYC program. He also worked briefly with environmental Research and Geosciences Limited, Port Harcourt, before joining the service of the University of Calabar as an assistant lecturer in 2004. He served in various capacities at different times in University of Calabar, including the coordinator of Marine Geology Program and the deputy dean of the Faculty of Physical Sciences. Professor Upong recently joined the service of the University of Uyo in 2025, where he's helping to nurture the newly established Geoscience Department. He's also serving as an external examiner for undergraduate and postgraduate students and an external assessor for promotion to the professorial cadre in several universities in Nigeria. Professor Upong has been involved in extensive fieldwork and research in various areas in the Calabar flank and other Nigeria sedimentary basins. Has also participated in several consultancy projects in the Niger Delta, as well as other parts of Nigeria. Professor Upong won the second prize of the prestigious NMGS Total Award for 2019. He's happily married. Professor Upong, sir, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So now we'll take your remarks, Professor Upong.
Okay, I want to first thank you for that elaborate introduction. I want to go ahead and thank the coordinator of NAPI Benin chapter, Mr. Edward Oza, and members of the vet school. I want to also thank the president of NAPI and everybody for doing a good job in having technical sessions every month across the country. I want to say that it's a privilege to be here, particularly considering the topic I'm going to chair. And I want to say that Dr. Joel Edegbai comes here with so much experience and that it promises to be a very interesting session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Upong. So before we proceed to the bio of the speaker to be taken by our chairman, we'd like to invite the President NAPE, Mr. John Bosco Uche, to give his remarks before we proceed. Mr. John Bosco, please.
I was confirm you can hear me?
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay, perfect. All right. Let me say first, good morning, everybody. And again, looking like another exciting session we're going to be having today with over 100 folks on the call already, and I believe a lot of us in the room. Again, thanks, Prof, for also helping us to chair this session. And I want to first, again, commend the Benin Chapter Coordinator because of the style and the way you typically try to deliver these technical meetings, combining the strength of folks we have in Benin in the room, but also virtually. And this topic today, why I'm also very interested on this one is that, yes, we typically do conventional oil and gas, but at the same time, we need to start thinking about unconventional as well. And I'm really looking forward that the speaker will do justice to give us more insight into, how unconventional can, become a reality in this country. So I'm really happy. And again, as you already noticed, many of the ESCO members are already on the call. Just be rest assured that at the national level, we will continue to support the chapter, every other chapter that we have, to continue to do what we do best, which is being the knowledge base of the industry. And it's basically through the chapters that we do this quite a lot more by sharing this our knowledge through technical meetings and also attracting more members to join us. So I want to just encourage you to keep doing it and be rest assured that you continue to get the support that you deserve. So without much ado, I will yield the floor back in, but I will stay on the call again because I'm also interested to listen to this topic, which will be an interesting one. So thanks to yourself, the moderator, but also the chapter coordinator and other executive of the chapter. Back to you now.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Bosco, for those remarks. So we'll now have the introduction of the speaker to be taken by the chairman, Professor Upong. Professor Upong, please.
Thank you very much once again. I feel honored to introduce the speaker today. He's Dr. Joel Edegbai, a sedimentologist with strong teaching and research portfolio at the University of Benin, where he's currently a senior lecturer. His research focuses on regional geology, multi-proxy investigation of sedimentary and metasedimentary strata, petroleum geology, medical geology, as well as agrogeology. He's a recipient of numerous awards, including Fulbright, DAD, and NDDC scholarships, together with 2014 NMGS Total Award for third best paper. He is a COMEG registered geoscientist and also a member of NAPE, NMGS, APG, and IS. He's God-fearing and happily married with 4 children. I want to say that he has the experience and expertise to do justice to the topic of the day, and I'm certain that you will enjoy this presentation, particularly considering the area is taking us through the unconventional oil and gas. So thank you very much, and let me present to you the speaker for the day, Dr. Joel Edegbai. You have the floor, sir.
Good day, everyone. I don't know, can you see my screen? Can you all see my screen?
Not yet, sir. I'll just stop sharing our screen here. Okay, yes, now we can.
Okay. Good morning, President-elect, the All Esco of the NAPE Benin chapter, all the fellows and all the colleagues and everyone that have deemed it fit to be a part of this technical presentation. So as already introduced, my name is Joel Edegbai. So I'm going to be giving a presentation titled Multi-Parameter Study of Mudstone Heterogeneity and its implications for unconventional reservoirs. Now, the motivation for this talk actually came from 2 technical sessions I listened to, as well as a publication out there by Professor Oluwajano and Professor Enyola in 2018. Now, the first technical presentation I listened to that sparked this was in 2021, and it was in honor of the late Professor Peters. And the presenter mentioned that the Southern Benue Trough is one of the few places in the world where we have deep water sediments outcropping. Earlier on in this year, my friend Alex Oshodi made a presentation where he mentioned that there is a possibility of unconventionals in the southern part of Nigeria, the Anambra Basin precisely. All right, so now when, like the president mentioned, Nigeria is currently harnessing conventional oil and gas resources. Now, if you look at conventional petroleum systems, we have different elements and processes. All right, but the interesting thing here is that sorry, just getting my pointer on. The interesting thing here is that for source rocks, all right, when they are buried, they typically undergo maturation and they generate hydrocarbon and expel same. Now, it's been proven that the expulsion efficiency is not 100%. So it typically would vary from around 40 to 80%, depending on the type of kerogen. All right, which means that we have a lot of petroleum in the source rocks themselves. So mudstone systems are typically called self-accumulating systems in that they act as source for hydrocarbon. They are the reservoirs, they are traps, and they are also seals, and they form continuous accumulations. Now, to successfully commercialize these resources, typically you look at cost, technology, and reservoir geology. But I'm not going to talk about the costs and the technology. I'm going to focus more on reservoir geology a lot. So in terms of technology, how do we harness these resources? We typically use hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling. And the reason why hydraulic fracturing is used is that shales are typically low in permeability. All right, so and for you to extract the petroleum from those shales, you have to create secondary porosities and permeabilities, and that means you have to frack these rocks. Also, horizontal drilling helps you to go so a lot more into the shales, but typically, if you have shale thicknesses or mudstone thicknesses greater than 15 meters, you can actually harness the petroleum resources via vertical drilling. Now, in terms of reservoir geology, like I mentioned earlier, we know that shales typically would not have good porosity and permeability characteristics. So what we typically do is to use a set of geological tools, multiparameters, to identify areas within the mudstone succession where you have high quartz or high calcite concentration. Examples in the US shows that mudstone formations where you have brittle minerals in excess of 40%, all right, typically would have good petrophysical properties, and they are amenable to fracturing. Now, experience has shown that mudstones typically show heterogeneity at several scales, whether you're looking at outcrop, core, or in thin sections. Now, this heterogeneity is brought about by depositional and post-depositional processes. Now, how do we characterize this mudstone units? You know, typically, lots of characterization is done on sands, carbonates, and maybe gravels, but not so much on mudstones. So because of this resource development, we are now looking into mudstones and trying to understand them better. So there are a lot of tools we can use, but we'll focus mainly on particle size and mineralogy. So looking at this ternary plot by Laser et al. In 2015, we're looking at the concentration or the percentage of sand, silt, and clays, essentially. So mudstones are typically sediments or sedimentary strata with at least 50% mud-sized particles. So by this ternary plot, where you have a concentration of mud-sized particles ranging from 50 to 75%, you classify them as sandy mudstones. But when they are over 75%, they can range from coarse mudstones, that is, if they have at least 2/3 of silt in them. Fine mudstones, as if they have at least 2/3 of clay to fine silts, and medium mudstones if they have 1/3 to 2/3 of coarse silts and clays. You can also classify mudstones based on their mineralogy. We have 3 end members in this ternary plot, so you can look at the total clay concentration, the total quartz concentration, and the total carbonate concentration. So by this scheme, typically if you have if the minerals that make up the mudstone are 50% or greater in terms of clay minerals, you classify them as argillaceous mudstones. If they have at least 50% of quartz, you classify them as siliceous mudstones. If they have at least 50% of carbonate minerals, you classify them as calcareous. But if these 3 end members, none of them make up 50%, you have various ranges from argillaceous, siliceous, argillaceous, calcareous, siliceous, and the whole likes. Now, this heterogeneity that we typically observe in mudstones, how do they come about? So there are 2 depositional models that we'll try to explore and hopefully will give us an understanding of the heterogeneity in mudstones. So the first model we're going to look at, it's the one by Baidul et al. In 2015. So we're looking at how proximal distal relationship controls microfacies. The proximal end, or more landwards, you have high clastic dilutions. So typically you bring in lots of fine sands and silty materials. Also, proximal realms tend to have shallower water levels, higher energy. And what that means is that because you have those conditions, it's typically going to be highly oxic, and you have lots of craters going there to bring about bioturbation. So you're going to have significant bioturbation intensity as well as biodiversity. Now, because you're in the proximal realm as well, we expect larger grain sizes in the mudstones units. Also, the rates of organic matter preservation is going to be much lower in the proximal end as opposed to when you move towards the distal end. In the distal end as well, because you have deeper water, lower energy levels, the fabric of the mudstone tends to be much more planar as compared to the proximal end where you have wavy to curved laminae as a result of the higher energy levels. Now, if you look at this model by Hack et al., all right, looking at how proximality as well controls the mineralogy and by extension, brittleness or brittle index of your mudstones. Now, as mentioned before, because you're in proximal levels, you have high clastic dilution. So typically your mudstones deposited in proximal levels tend to be more siliceous, as opposed to mudstone deposited in more distal realms where you tend to have more argillaceous mudstones. As you move from, as the clastic dilution reduces, it favors the deposition of calcareous mudstones in between. Now, what does that mean? It means that as you move towards the more proximal realms, you tend to have deposition of more brittle minerals. So we expect higher brittleness index, all right, in the mudstones in the more proximal regions. In addition to that, it's been proven that with higher salinities in the distal realms, clay minerals, which tend to have a net negative charge, can begin to combine with cations in distal realms which have high salinity. And as that happens, these clay minerals will tend to form what you call floccules, all right? And floccules are more or less aggregates of clay particles. All right, so what means is that those floccules will tend to behave like silt grains. So we have sedimentation as clay floccules more as you move towards the distal realm, whereas you have more silts, all right, to fine sands, all right, as you move towards the proximal realm due to higher rates of clastic dilution. Now, we're going to take a case study of the western flank of the Anambra Basin. Now, this section, we're going to try to give a brief overview of the regional geology of Nigeria. Now, if you look at this map here by Ye et al. In 2017 and several other studies that have been conducted, you see that Nigeria's sedimentary basins belong to a much larger tectonic feature that is called the West and Central African Rift System. So this West and Central African Rift System was initiated as the West Gondwana, which comprised at the time of South American plate, and the African plate began to split. Now, the West and Central African Rift System is polycyclic in terms of its tectonics, but we are not going to focus on the earlier cycles. We are going to be focusing more on the post-inversion tectonic cycle of the basin, which is, in this case, the Anambra Basin. So the Anambra Basin was formed after the Santonian inversion episode, and it contains a lithic field that has an age span from Campanian to Danian. All right. Interestingly, if you look at the sea level curves, all right, we had peak flooding in the late Campanian to early Maastrichtian time, and that brought about a connection of the South Atlantic Ocean with the Tethys Ocean. And in this case, that connection took a route via the Bida-Sokoto Basin. All right. And that flooding episode brought about widespread deposition of mudstones, heterolithics, coal, limestone, sands, and ironstone. Now, the thickness of these different lithophases varies as you move from the proximal ends of the basin into the distal, deeper part of the basin. Now, this is a map of parts of the Benin flank, and this red dotted line shows the basement sediment interface. We are going to be focusing on this, I believe it's olive green formation, which is called the Mamu formation. Now, based on facies analysis we've conducted in the Benin flank, using multidisciplinary tools, we believe that during the late Campanian to mid-Maastrichtian time, wave-dominated estuarine paleo-environment predominated. Now, just to give you a snippet into that, for those of you that are familiar with that terrain, as you move towards the basement margins, you find what we call outcrops of the basal sandstones, which are which is the Lokoja formation. Now, as you move further away from the proximal regions, you begin to come into ironstones and dark mudstones of the Mamu formation, which overlies the sandy unit. So that in itself shows that you had deepening of the basin and flooding of the basin as well. So we also studied several outcrops, and we believe that this model fits what happened much better than other models that exists in the basin. Now we're focusing on the Uzeba formation, Uzeba outcrop, which is shown on the map here. Now, this Uzeba outcrop consists of over 6 meters dark mudstone succession. Now, based on facies analysis, again, we think that this dark mudstone succession was deposited in a marsh sub-environment. Now, to undertake this study, we utilized multi-parameters, which involved particle size analysis using laser diffraction, mineralogical analysis, petrographic studies, geochemical analysis, and palynofacies analysis. In all, we undertook a high-resolution sampling in addition to the outcrop studies. All right, and we obtained 24 samples for this study. Now, recall this ternary plot by Laser et al. So from the laser diffraction and particle size analysis, we see that our samples fall or have particle size that range from sandy mudstones to fine mudstones. Now, on the basis of that, we're able to erect a graphic log of the mudstone succession as at Uzeba. Now, also from the XROD data we observed, we modified the ternary plots from Laser et al. 2015. Now, one of the key things we observed from the XRD data is that there are no carbonates. There are no carbonate minerals in the mudstones. In addition to that, acid tests with dilute HCl did not give off any effervescence, which confirms the lack of carbonates in the samples. Now, what we see is that our samples typically show or typically plot within the field of silica, aluminum, siliceous, argillaceous mudstones to argillaceous siliceous mudstones. Now, from the petrographic thin sections, all right, also coupled with what we found from the outcrop studies and the particle size analysis, we're able to identify 3 subunits within the mudstone succession. Now, if you look at which we called Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3, if you look at Unit 1, looking at the thin sections here, so what you see as white dots indicate quartz minerals, all right? Now, you see that typically you have different laminations there, and some laminations are quartz-rich, some laminations are clay-rich. Now, the quartz-rich laminations are much thicker, all right, than the clay-rich laminations. And these laminations are, they vary from planar to wavy, and are sub-parallel to one another. Now, if you look at Unit 2, you see that the percentage of quartz minerals are not as much as in Unit 1. All right. Now, looking at this petrographic section, you see that the quartz minerals and the thickness of the quartz laminae reduces as you go up, which tells us that you more or less have a fining upward succession within this Unit 2. In Unit 3 as well, now you're seeing lots of quartz minerals, all right? And the fabric shows that the laminations vary from wavy to curved laminations, all right? And it appears to have a higher degree of bioturbation compared to the other two subunits, all right? That's I mentioned earlier, which in some way indicates that you had much higher energy, shallower water level, and perhaps at this time it was more in a proximal setting. Now, if we bring in geochemical data to more or less see what's going on, all right, in this mudstone succession. Now, just to give you a background of how this works. So if you look at silicon would typically come from silicate minerals, but in this case, we are using silicon as a proxy for percentage of quartz. All right, aluminium is using that as a proxy for the percentage of clay minerals that you have. For titanium is present in heavy minerals such as rutile and sphene, and these heavy minerals tend to be concentrated in the quartz-rich larger grain size particles or fractions within the mud. The aluminium, like I mentioned earlier, is within the clay size range. Now, for zirconium is from zircon crystals, and zircon minerals are heavy minerals, which you will find in the coarser fraction, as opposed to the aluminium, which is found in the clay fractions. So more or less, we're looking at the ratio of coarse fraction to fine fractions or clay fractions. Now, in this one, this is gotten from our XRD data. We're looking at the ratio of quartz to clay as a function of depth. So again, what you see is that this more or less also pretty much defines the different units that we identified using the particle size as well as the thin section and XRD tools that we talked about earlier. So you see the Unit 2 showing lower particle size, all right, which implies deposition at higher water levels and lower energy levels as well. Now, we also try to get proxies for paleosalinity and paleo productivity. I'll come to this marine paleo productivity in a bit. But if you look at the geochemical data here, so aluminium, deeper water, more marine setting, phosphorus, deeper water, more marine setting, potassium, strontium, deeper water, more marine settings compared to titanium, which is more or less indicative of clastic dilution. All right. So in this column here, we're looking at the percentage of marine microplankton with depth. We'll see how we got that data in the next slide. Now, again, you see that in Unit 2, there seems to be higher paleosalinity and as well as marine productivity, all right, compared to the Unit 1 and Unit 3, which again confirms the observations we made in the previous slides. Now, palynofacies data, which we obtained, shows a predominance of phytoclasts. Phytoclasts are land-derived organic material. And according to Tyson, So just to give you a background of what we did a point count. We used a point counting technique of at least 300 organic matter particles, right? All right. So, and it still shows the dominance of phytoclast. So looking at this ternary plot by Tyson in 1995, you see that where you have a predominance of phytoclast, you are in a highly proximal setting, which is what it tells us, a highly proximal, also more oxic setting, as opposed to more anoxic settings when you go into much deeper depot centers. Now, recall I talked about marine microplankton on the previous slide. So it might not be so obvious, but if you have two bugs here, which are this one and this one, all right, which as opposed to the Palinophaces records from the other two units, all right, shows a higher marine influence. So marine microplanktons like dinoflagellates, cysts, all right, are indicative of marine flooding in the basin at the time. Now, putting together all the proxies, we came up with a model of how deposition has changed through time. Now, we think that the lowest water level with coinciding with higher energy, all right, took place at the time where Unit 3, all right, was deposited. Intermediate water levels, all right, with more or less intermediate energy was took place at the time where deposition of Unit 1 occurred, while the basin was much deeper, all right, at the time Unit 2 with microfacies 2 was deposited. Now, what does this mean? This means that if you are looking at if this succession, all right, were to have shale oil or shale gas, all right, you have suitable brittle zones, all right, more favored in microfacies 1 and microfacies 3 in comparison to microfacies 2. Now, what's the wider implication of all this? Like the president mentioned, in Nigeria, we are only talking about conventionals. Now, if you look at the shale revolution data in the US, so in about 2007, all right, prior to 2007, you see that the contribution of unconventionals into the export figures or the production figures in the US was more or less about hovering around 1 million barrels of oil equivalent per day. But from 2007, the production figures from unconventionals began to steadily increase, all right? And as at 2025, the production from unconventionals is around 23 million barrels of oil equivalent per day, all right, which is huge. Now, that has made the US to be the #1 producer of oil, all right, in the world. As of 2025, the daily production of oil from the US shale basins is around 12 million barrels of oil per day. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning part of the presentation, one of the motivations for this presentation was from data presented by Professor Oluwajano and Professor Enyola. In addition to that, Dim et al. In 2019 has shown that, and other publication has shown that we have oil seeps, all right, in the southern Benue Trough, and yeah, all right. So what this means for us as Nigerians is that there is potential for shale oil and shale gas. Now, to support that, if you look at the hydrogen index data, which an ongoing study that I'm carrying out currently, all right, it shows that you have up to about 500, let's say over 500 milligrams of hydrocarbons per gram of TOC, all right, within the Aziaco and Ogu groups, all right, which more or less is telling you that you have source rocks with good, with type 2 kerogen with good potential for initial oil generation. Its TOCs recorded also shows over 10 weight percent of TOC from this unit, all right, which shows potential. Now, the data from produced by Professor Oluwajano and Professor Eola shows that these particular source rocks are actually within the oil and gas window, depending on the part of the basin that you are on. So there is significant potential. Now, the interesting part of this is that these shale formations are not so deep. So in terms of rig time to drill these wells, it's actually cheaper than drilling conventional wells. So we can maximize a lot of potential, especially as Nigeria is looking to improve the daily production figures from around 1.5 million barrels of oil per day to over 2 million barrels of oil. So I'm here calling on especially the independent oil and gas companies in Nigeria to actively pursue this. It's saddening that if you look at the global map for shale basins in the world, Nigeria is not there, whereas this resource is there. And it's only Nigerians that can unlock this, all right? So I would like to appreciate NAPE Benin chapter, all right, and the sponsors Unicel, all right, for giving me this opportunity to make this presentation. Now, during the course of my career, I have benefited from NAPE grants in aid, Fulbright, NDDC, DAD, TED Fund, and scholarship. I also like to appreciate all Cretaceous researchers. I feel that we don't appreciate ourselves enough, going from research that dates back to the 60s, 70s. So you look at late colleagues like Prof. Agagu Kogbe, also colleagues that are still alive now, Professor Ikwozo and his team, Dr. Onoma, Dr. Idowu, late Professor Baji, Abubakar, Sakin Yadoka, Professor Shetima, Professor Akonde, Professor Ojo, Professor Ayola, Professor Mosto, Dr. Dim and his team, Professor Mwajide Meji, Professor Okoro, Professor Ajakaye, late Professor Kingsley Ojo, Professor Adegoke, late Professor Peters, late Professor Amajo, Professor Odigi, Dr. Emmanuel Enu, Professor Olade, and the likes that have been working in the Cretaceous. I want to celebrate you, and the work that you have done have contributed to what we are doing currently. I also want to appreciate people that have contributed immensely to my professional development. First off is the late Professor Williams Emoforeta that gave me the job that I currently have in the University of Benin and pushed me to always aim higher. We also have Dr. Sam Koka that introduced me to the regional geology, Dr. Ladipo, Dr. Muyiwa Olawoki, Dr. Professor Fadia. I always interact with these people whenever I have ideas, and they are always willing to listen to the stupid ideas I have and make comments. Also, Professor Obo, who I worked with while I was in the US. So here's me saying thank you for listening to my presentation. I would be happy to take your questions. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Can we give a round of applause, virtual applause, of course, to our speaker today? Thank you so much for that excellent presentation, sir. Before we take the recap by the chairman, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of the treasurer of NAPE, Mr. Emeka Ezekwelu. You're very welcome, sir. We're glad to have you with us today. So Professor Upong, over to you for the recap of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joel, for that elaborate presentation. Very, very interesting and promising and exciting. Your topic of multi-parameter study of mudstone heterogeneity, implications for unconventional reservoirs. You started by telling us how Peter's works challenge and Nigeria is currently harnessing conventional sources mostly, and the most interesting the form contour, as well as horizontal drilling for extracting petroleum from mud rocks. And he went ahead to tell us that mud rocks has poor porosity and permeability, which is well known, and need to use special techniques to harness the prospects that abound in mud rocks. And he gave us better understanding of mud rocks using the grain size and mineralogy, where in terms of grain size considered coarse, fine, and medium mudstones. And in terms of mineralogy, talked about argillaceous, siliceous, and carbonate mudstones. And he talked about proximal relationship in mudstones that have resultant effects, and also distal relationships. So in proximal relationships, we have
Professor Upong, we seem to have lost you. Can you hear us? It seems our chairman is having some technical issues. Professor Upong, are you still on the call? All right, it seems our chairman is having network issues. So if you have questions, please, you can put them in the chat box and then we'll take them right after this. So we'll take the questions now while we wait for our chairman to rejoin the meeting. So we have a few hands raised. So we'll take the hands that we have raised and then we'll take any questions in the chat.
Hello?
Okay, Professor Upong, welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry, we had a glitch. I was at the point of telling us how the case study from Anambra Basin has helped to shed light on the mud rocks in that area of Nigeria. And it said it belongs to the Western Central African Rift System. And where you had the mud rocks as a result of peak flooding in Anambra Basin. So we had wide deposition of the mud rocks and associated lithophacies. The focus of the study was the Mamu Formation, particularly the Uzeba outcrop, which is made up of more than 6 meters of dark mudstone successions. The approach used by the speaker included high-resolution sampling, and the multi-parameters were used for the study. And the carbonate minerals were absent, were not encountered in the samples of these mud rocks. And it divided these mud rock units into 3. The first unit had quartz and clay-rich laminations. The second unit had spots which were not as much as the clear units, whereas the third one had quartz and clear that was had higher degree of laminations. The different units also exhibited different relationships between the deposition depths and the heavy minerals. Paleosalinity in this case showed that Unit 2 had higher paleosalinity compared to Units 1 and 3. And in terms of polynophore schist, the speaker made us to understand that you had more anoxic species in the deeper settings, as the deeper depositors. And in terms of water levels, that Unit 1 had lower deposited with lower water levels, while Unit 2 had deepest part were deposited at the deepest part of the basins. And in terms of shale gas accumulation, he pointed out that microprocesses 1 and 3 are more favorable. And he went ahead to tell us, or to make us understand, that unconventional oil production is receiving attention, particularly in the US from 2007, and it has increased production of resources from bismuth rocks in the US has peaked presently. And presently, in 2025, we are producing 12 million barrels of oil and gas per day from bismuth rocks in terms of unconventional approach. And drilling unconventional oil and gas surely takes less time and resources. And he really felt that Nigeria should tap into these prospects and do a lot to ensure that we extract resources from the oil and gas. The part that really touched me was the area that the presenter took time to acknowledge, to bring to limelight the prospects that lie in the oil and gas, in the unconventional resources in the country. I want to thank him for that elaborate presentation. Thank you very much, Dr. Jill.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Upong. Now we'll take questions from the audience. We have 2 hands raised. We'll take the first question from Inusa Rabiu and next from Anthony Ofoma. So Inusa Rabiu, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you. Please confirm, am I audible?
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ibebi and the organizing team. I would like to also use this opportunity to thank Mr. Edwards for organizing this great and insightful webinar. My name is Inu Sarabi Isa, recent graduate of petroleum engineering from Benin University, Kano, and also a former intern at NEPL. My question is, considering the complexity of Mudstone heterogeneity, how can early stage exploration team integrate multiparameter Mudstone data to direct unconventional plays, especially in frontier basins like those in northern Nigeria, particularly Kolmani, which there will be ongoing appraisal currently in the basins. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Innocent. For asking how from unconventional, particularly in frontier basins like the Kolmani. Dr. Joe?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you, Mr. Rabiu. Okay, so in the Kolmani region, I think that's Chad Basin, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the Kolmani well is actually exploring for conventional resources. So the hydrocarbon within the pay zones, within the traps, would have come from source rocks that lie deep in the subsurface. Now, when we talk about unconventionals, in this case, we are looking at hydrocarbon resources that require a bit of technology to get them out. And I mentioned hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling. Now, in this case, the source rocks that would have generated the hydrocarbons that are present in the Komani field conventional reservoirs would still have some petroleum, either oil or gas, depending on the thermal maturation, locked within them. So in unconventional scenarios, we are focusing on the source rock, where this was generated, to harness the resources from there. But in conventional resources, we are looking at reservoirs like sands and carbonates. But in Komani region, I believe it's going to be sandstone reservoirs. So it's slightly different. Now, the approach for doing what we call play-based evaluation for unconventionals, let me start with conventionals. For conventionals, you want to map the source horizons and also put some cutoffs in terms of TOCs, HI, thermal maturity. Also map the reservoirs, look at where porosity and permeability parameters are okay. You also want to map the seal, also want to map the traps, then integrate all these different elements and get regions where you have what you call sweet spots or low risk areas, and that's where you want to drill. But in the case of conventional resources, we are not going to focus so much on the reservoir, trap, seal. We are focusing on the source rock itself, because the source rock is the reservoir, the source rock is the trap, the source rock is the seal. So we are going to carry out what we call common risk assessment on the source rock horizon, looking at the TOCs, looking at the HI, how the HI varies, how the thermal maturity varies. We're also going to do 1D, 2D basin modeling to see the time hydrocarbon was generated. All right, that would inform us the type of liquids we are likely to have, all right, locked within the source rocks, and where those liquids are within the basin, whether it's oil or gas. Then that would help us quantify the reserves that we have within the area of interest, and that will inform exploration decision as to whether or not to drill. But in this case, like I'm proposing that this we know that these reserves are there. So what Nigeria needs to do is to commit lots of resources. A lot of resources have been committed in the northern part of Nigeria, which is good. All right, we can still continue with that, but I think that there are low-hanging fruits, all right, in this shale oil, shale gas in the south, and these wells are much cheaper to drill. So we can commit a fraction of the money we are using in frontier exploration for shale gas and shale oil exploration, and I believe strongly that we would hit the jackpot. No one is going to do it for us except us Nigerians. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it was answered.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joel, for your elaborate answer. I'm sure you've satisfied the curiosity of all the listeners. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
I
Mr.
can
Joel.
still
Thank
see
you for
some hands are up.
Yes. So we'll take Anthony Ofoma next. And finally, we'll take Olayemi Samuel, and then we'll take some of the questions in the chat box. Anthony, you may unmute yourself and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Doctor. Very nice topic. Well delivered. I want to digress a bit from the technical aspect. I want to go probably policy-wise and capital intensiveness of these unconventionals. Okay, first, do we have, have you looked at policy-wise in terms of probably the regulatory bodies and all that, in terms of approvals and all that? Because from your statistics, you said that US has the highest, but in as much as we have the environment for these, we're not even there. We are not even listed. That's one. Have you looked at, policies governing this, whether it permits or is there any way we can reach out? That is one. Then two, in terms of capital intensive project, in terms of unconventional, do you think we can survive it if we try it in this part of the world? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Chairman, you can go ahead. Sorry.
I wanted to say great thanks to Mr. Anthony Ofama for his questions on policy, that they should examine whether you have existing policies that will aid Nigeria go into or enable the oil companies to go into production of resources from the unconventional sources, and also the capital aspect of it. I'm sure you'll be able to explain more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you, Dr. Anthony. Now, if we look at the US case, one of the things that spurred development of shale gas and shale oil resources, apart from the technological advancement, was strong leadership by the president of the US at the time. I forgot his name. So what he did was to say, no, America cannot continue to import oil and gas. All right. So there was a strong policy statement in that regard. And I'm sure there were also tax incentives as well that motivated companies to go and, research into these systems and find ways to exploit them. Now, that's why we are here as NAPE. We are the ones looking for the oil. So we have brought this to us. I don't know so much about I know there is a PIB bill that has been passed. I don't know. I believe it covers only conventionals and not so much on unconventionals, but I stand to be corrected. I believe that we can, as NAPE, we can take this to the House of Assembly and push such that we have a strong regulation that would help indigenous companies to go into exploring and exploiting this resource, because like I said earlier, this is a low-hanging fruit that Nigeria desperately needs. Nigeria needs a lot of dollars to flow into our country. We are currently struggling to produce 1.5 million barrels of oil per day, where we should be doing over 2 million barrels of oil per day. So this will give us that. Now, in addition to that, in terms of costs, now, as at 2007, all right, the price of oil was like 50 barrels. And the cost of 1 barrel of oil, I think, was around $25. So there was a margin of around $25 to $30 to be made as profits from 1 barrel of oil that was produced. Yes, you would argue that it could be slightly, maybe around 10% higher to produce from unconventionals than conventionals. But don't forget that if you look at the life cycle of a field, during the exploration and appraisal phase, you are pumping a lot of money. But when you begin to produce, you already have those facilities there. You begin to recoup your investment. And I want to also say this, that with what is going on in the Middle East, the price of oil might likely go up in the nearer future. So this is quite timely for Nigeria to start investing. And once the price of oil and gas goes up, it becomes more profitable to exploit this resource. So it is there, lying there. This is more or less what I think is the jewel of Nigeria that will liberate us from what we are currently experiencing right now. So I want to mention again strongly that there is a huge potential. As NAPE, we can push for this. I believe there might be industry, captains of industry listening. We can come up with a strategy, leverage on the knowledge base that is present in the academia, and also experience that is present in the oil and gas industry, and make this happen. So I hope this answers your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Edegbai. It does, but I want to quickly add something, please. This is just for NAPE, for the executive here present. If there is a way we can slot this presentation during the conference, I'm just suggesting, it's left for you to take. If there's a way the executive can slot this presentation during the forthcoming conference, and if a doctor is willing to present something, it will go a long way. It's just a way of suggestion. Thank you very much, Doc. I appreciate it.
Okay. Dr. Tonu Former, that's a very nice one. Don't worry. After the presentation, I work with Dr. Edegbai. It's not still late. I think 31st of this month, is the closing date for submission. So we can still do that. We can still do
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anthony, Dr. Anthony, for your question, and thank you, Dr. Joel. So we'll take our next question from Olayemi Samuel. Olayemi Samuel, you may unmute your mic and speak.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Please confirm if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
All right, sir. Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. So my question just is similar to the last question being asked, and is based on the capital aspect of it. So I just need a bit of clarification. You were saying that during the presentation that to extract from shale, that's unconventional reservoir, is cheaper than extracting from a conventional reservoir. Like, just need a bit of clarification from that because when we are talking of extraction for like one of the things that is being necessary during extraction from conventional reservoir is not until we need an EOR before we start looking at hydraulic fracturing, which is very, very basic in extracting from unconventional reservoir. So I need a bit of clarity in that aspect of taking a look at the cost of extraction from conventional and unconventional reservoir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Samuel. So during my presentation, what I mentioned was that the cost of drilling in unconventionals is way cheaper than drilling in conventionals. Why? If you look at the Southern Benue Trough, for example, you are not going to drill up to 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet is too much. All right, so that is less rig time, and that is cheaper way of in terms of cost, is much cheaper. So you can easily drill several wells. Now, but in terms of fracture, hydraulic fracking. Now, when I was speaking to Dr. Alfama's question, what I said was that based on the scenarios in the US, it's around maybe 10% slightly higher to produce 1 barrel of oil from unconventionals compared to conventionals. But to me, 10% shouldn't be what will deter us. All right, considering the fact that we desperately need as a country to harness this God-given resource that God has given to us. We already have lots of the facilities in the Niger Delta. All right, so we can come up with ingenious ways to tie back whatever we are producing into these facilities, and that's perhaps can reduce the cost. That's why we are here in NAPE. We are here to find oil and gas, bring in new ideas. So we can come together as NAPE, all right, and look for ways that can bring the cost down and harness this resource. So I hope that answers your question, sir.
All right, thank you so much, sir. That's just the clarity I want to know. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. So we'll take a few questions from the chat box. We have a number of questions. I'll just read out 2 at a time for our speaker, Dr. Joel, to answer. So the first question says, has there been any data that could lead to the volumes that could be drained from Nigeria's unconventional resources? Has there been any data that could lead to the volumes, or I guess accounts for volumes that could be drained from Nigeria's unconventional resources?
Okay.
And the second question, okay. Would you like to
continue.
go?
I wanted to suggest you just read up all the questions, then I'll answer one of them.
Great. The next question says, does Nigeria currently have the environmental regulations and enforcement capacity needed to manage the risks of fracking? Does Nigeria currently have the environmental regulations and enforcement capacity needed to manage the risks of fracking safely? Can I go on with the next question?
Yes, please. I'm with you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Next question says, how can we combine reprocessed legacy seismic data with newer 3D data to make sure our interpretation stays consistent?
Yeah, continue, I'm with you.
All right. Next, considering the high amount of water and energy required for its production, do you think Nigeria is ready for another set of environmental challenges? And we'll take one more question. Can multi-parameter data be used to accurately predict fracture propagation potential in overpressured mudstone reservoirs? Can multi-parameter data be used to accurately predict fracture propagation potential in overpressured mudstone reservoirs? And finally, how do variations in mineral composition, pore structure, and organic matter distribution within heterogeneous mudstone formations influence their mechanical behavior, fluid transport properties, and ultimately the effectiveness of hydraulic fracturing in unconventional reservoirs? How do variations in mineral composition, pore structure, organic matter distribution within heterogeneous mudstone formations influence their mechanical behavior, fluid transport properties, and ultimately the effectiveness of hydraulic fracturing in unconventional reservoirs?
All right. Thank you very much to everyone that has asked. So I'll start with the last question. Now, when I was making a presentation, I said there are several factors that contribute to this. I didn't speak on geomechanics, which is what this question is focusing on. Yes, what we know for sure is that when you're talking about geomechanics, you want to know the stress regime, all right, within the area, and that comes into play. You need people with expertise in that. You also need microseismic data as well, in combination with the mineralogical data that we mentioned, and that will give you a clear picture. So that is at the stage of deciding how to go about the hydraulic fracturing, because you need to propagate these fractures. But in this presentation, what we are focused on is, okay, there is oil and gas, there is unconventional oil and gas potential within Nigeria. Can we apply multi-parameter tools to identify regions within a mudstone succession, all right, that would help us identify areas that are amenable to fracturing? So I believe that based on the data we have presented, it is possible to use multi-parameter. We can also integrate that with other tools to answer the question regarding geomechanics. So that is very, very possible. Now, the question on water and energy crisis. You see, the thing is, we'll always have things to look at. That's why the industry works hand in hand with environmental agencies to ensure that we are doing things ethically and we are doing things properly. So I believe strongly that this challenge can be resolved. We shouldn't focus on challenge. And more so, we have not even said we want to start drilling. This is still at the exploration phase. So that, for me, that's the issue with water and energy challenge, for me, shouldn't come at this point. Yes, it's something we need to think about, but that shouldn't deter us. What we need to do now is to quantify how much of these resources we have. All right. What is the oil and gas price? How are we going to take this out of the ground? All right. I think that should be the conversation at this point. Now, the question on reprocessed legacy seismic data. Yeah, so I'm not a geophysicist, but this will definitely come in, all right, because you want to understand what the first of all, how do I say this now? First of all, the Santonian inversion episode, how it's going to impact on the shale oil and shale gas resource. So you will see all those structures, all right, from seismic. That will give you a regional overview, all right, to map structures within the Southern Benue Trough. Yes, that is handy. We'll need that information going forward. Now, there was a question on data on the volumes within the Southern Benue Trough in terms of shale oil and shale gas. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have that data. You would need the person that mentioned seismic. You will need seismic to be able to, and also common risk assessments to be able to quantify the resources as well as reserves that we likely have in Nigeria. So to the best of my knowledge, we don't have that. Now, the question on regulation, I believe I've spoken about that. We need to work hand in hand with the environmental agencies to ensure that we do things ethically, all right, and also rightly as well. So I don't know if I missed out on any question. I think there was one on multi-parameter tools and how that would influence oil and gas migration or something like that. I don't know if you can take that question again. It was the next to the last question. I didn't get that correctly. If you want to take that again, I just speak to it.
Yes, so just to read that question again.
Yeah.
So the question says, can multi-parameter data be used to accurately predict fracture propagation potential in overpressure mudstone reservoirs?
Okay, great. Now the thing is, to the best of my knowledge, these mudstone successions are not as at present, they are not buried deeply. So the question of overpressure, to the best of my knowledge, shouldn't arise. But yes, multi-parameter data, all right, in conjunction with working with geomechanics specialists would and stress data from the region would help to determine how you can easily propagate fractures within the mudstone successions when we eventually decide to start producing oil and gas. Yes, it would give that piece of information.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joel. So we'll take the question from Mr. Wilson Osong. Please unmute your mic and speak. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you, Dr. Edegbai, for that presentation. It was quite insightful. I appreciate all that you have shown to us, and it's quite understandably. But I have some concerns, trying to get oil from unconventional resources like cracking of shale. It's causing implication. And I want to talk on the environmental implications on cracking shale, and also looking at I know you mentioned you spoke about the economics, right? When giving response to Tony and I think Samuel, yeah. But I think it will be good. This is an educative forum. It will be good. I will look at it and try to see how best we'll be able to, to leave the conventional and go for the unconventional. Because I think currently the way what we have right now, we are trying to see how we can get low-hanging fruit. I think for us in Nigeria Nigeria, the low-hanging fruit should be our gas in trying to go green. Gas will be the most likely means and convenient means for us, because we have lots of wells that have been plugged over the years by earlier prospectors. So but now talking about shale, I know if you look at the southwest where we have the Agbabu formation, right, and basically the Dahomey formation, most part of it, we have those shales hanging there, and we are not looking at it right now. So, but I think we are trying to make a case, for us to look at unconventional sources of oil, So, but considering the environmental implications, I want to look at it and try and see how you can help us to understand what implications they are in, for us to go into unconventional sources of petroleum production. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. So there is a lot of climate politics, which we must understand. All right. If you look at our CO2 emission profile from Nigeria, it's nothing compared to the CO2 emission in Europe and in America and even in Asia. So we are still lagging behind. So I think Nigeria needs to put her best foot forward. Now, for me, going by what we have read, the most significant environmental challenge is induced seismicity, which I believe if proper studies are done, all right, we can easily curtail that. All right. So I'm not saying that we should leave conventionals. No, we are not leaving conventional. I'm saying in addition to the conventional exploration and development we are doing, we can also add conventional. That will boost our reserve base and improve our daily production figures to the region where we want it. Nigeria urgently needs a lot of dollars. All right, while we are trying to jig the foreign solid mineral sector and agricultural sector, this unconventionals, in my mind, is a low-hanging fruit. Now, you mentioned tar sand deposits in Agbabu, so that is unconventionals, yes, but that is slightly different from the subject of this discourse, sir. So there are a lot of things in the media where you see methane coming out of tap water in the US. That is all propaganda. There is, if you go to the US, for example, one of the things that you will find is that a lot of the climate activists, many of them have more than one car. They don't go on bicycles like their counterparts in Europe. So, which for me is hypocritical, right? And many of you may not like it, but I'm happy Trump is in power, all right? Because he's a businessman. You need to keep pumping this oil to grow the economy, all right? And many of the proponents of green energy, all right, electric vehicles and the likes, all right, they are from Europe. Sadly, apart from Norway and UK, which other European country has a lot of oil and gas resources? They rely on imports to supply their energy needs. All right. So if they can bring in policies or promote climate change agenda to keep the fossil fuel in the ground, it means that they become more prosperous than us in Africa, which for me is not a balanced argument or a balanced way to look at things. All right. I think the discussion should be keep exploiting Earth's resources ethically and in a sustainable manner. All right. So I hope that speaks to your question.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Joel. And with that, that'll be the last question we'll take in today's meeting. Yeah, you can share or send any other questions that you have to our speaker for his for answers. Thank you so much, Dr. Joel. Thank you to everyone who asked questions, and yeah, thank you to everyone whose questions we didn't take as well. So very quickly, we'll move on to our announcements from the Publicity Secretary.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Going through the announcement. So, technical business meeting continues for 2025. Upcoming technical business meeting. The UK Europe chapter, the technical business meeting is coming up July 2025. That's tomorrow. The Abuja chapter is having the technical business meeting on July 30th. So we have a call for abstracts and business meeting monthly sponsorship. NAPE ICE conference, NAPE International Conference and Exhibition is coming up between the 9th to 13th of November 2025 at Eco Hotel and Suites, Lagos. Also, we're also calling for sponsorships, and the opportunities exist for sponsorship in different categories. Submission, excuse me. After submission, still remains August 31st, 2025. Upcoming events, NAPIA is celebrating the 50th anniversary. Yeah, Thursday, 14th August. Also call for sponsorship for back to school initiatives. Also, please, this reminder to renew our memberships and dues to prevent being suspended. If you like to do so, kindly pay to the account number seen on the screen above. Thank you very much.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Remark.
Thank you very much for today. So we'll take remarks from our sponsors, Unicel.
Please, I want to deeply apologize.
Professor Okong, were you speaking? Okay, so we'll just take the remarks from our sponsor.
Sorry, I want to deeply apologize. The network threw me out and I've been struggling to get back to the presentation. I deeply apologize for the setback.
You're welcome back, Professor Wong. So now we'll just be taking the...
Me, please?
Yes. We'll be taking the remarks from our sponsor, Unicel. We have representatives from Unicel in the meeting. Please go ahead. I think our sponsors reps have dropped off the call, but we'd just like to acknowledge and recognize their contribution to the success of today's meeting. Thank you so much for your sponsorship, Unicel. Next, we'll take the remarks from our President-elect, Madam Olajumoke Cecilia Ajayi. Over to you, ma'am.
Madam is not on the call presently.
All right, thank you. So on that note, we'll take the closing remarks from our chapter coordinator. We've had the remarks from the President-elect. He's not on the call. We'll just take the remarks and votes of thanks by our chapter coordinator, Mr. Edward.
Anyway, okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for, even, I'm surprised that the President-elect is not here, but it doesn't matter. I can sit in for both of them. The PA told me he was rushing for another meeting. Thank you for attending this operation. But this is a hybrid meeting after this activity online. Sorry, we'll now move down to the physical meeting where the coordinator will do a lot of work. So immediately after this meeting, we move to the viewing center. We have about 3 viewing centers in this meeting. No, Benin is a unique chapter. I try to introduce another chapter, another physical meeting in Port Harcourt, the School of Graduate School. Unfortunately, I did the network through them out today, but that was a new chapter. I'm trying to introduce physical meeting within Benin chapter. So thank you everyone for attending. I'm seeing our sponsor raise up his hand. I'll give him a floor to somebody sponsor this program now as a mark of honor. We need to give him time to talk. He said, I've been trying to come in, we couldn't come in. So after this physical meeting, we all go to our viewing centers. So the chairman of the question and the presenter, I'll perform my function as the coordinator on NAPE by, we have a representative here who will take your plug on your behalf and will find a way of sending it across to you. Dr. Edegbai, thank you very much. I'm proud of you. Thank you for your very well educated presentation. the chairman of the education, Professor Andy Upon. Thank you very much. He used to be my senior in school. I still a prof now. I'm still my senior. I'm my master now. Thank you very much. So please, can we just allow the sponsor of this occasion to give us a remarks of this presentation. Thank you. Can you sell the meter? Can you come in, please? Mr. Ken, can you come in?
Mr. Ken, please unmute your mic.
Mr. Ken, you can.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So that has been the problem. I've been begging for my mic to be open. Well, I've been at the background listening in from the beginning. I mean, I was quite early here. So it's been an exciting moment. I mean, I haven't been in this program before, but I think it makes sense. So if wishes were horses, I think I would like to be sponsoring almost all the time. But then we have commitment around other chapters. Well, we're a local company operating in this industry for 29 years now, trying to build capacity within, because that's the only way sustainability can be achieved. And we know that the best way, or the best way where, or the best location where this professionalism, competency, collaboration is built is around industry events and associations like this. And on record, we are visibly doing this across all the industry activities that runs on annual calendar. Unicell, of course, is a chemical company, and then an engineering company. We dwell in all forms of chemical to enhance food production, flow assurances, treat issues like water and other challenges of production. And then we do the production solution where we do the well testing, we do the production facility, and we manage operations and maintenance, equipment repairs and rentals. And this will continue to do, and then continue to advise with the industry experts. So we are happy to be part of you in sponsoring chapters activities, and we want to commit to a longer partnership with you. A special thank you to the coordinator, Mr. Edward Oza, all the schools, chairmen, and the speakers, past presidents, invited guests. I thank you very much, and I wish you a safe trip back to wherever you come from. Those online, those physical. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ken. Thank you once again, UNICEF, for sponsoring today's meeting and making it possible for us to hold it successfully. So we have the presentation of plaques, which will hold physically in our viewing Benin across the Imperial Head Office building. So this is for our chairman of today, Professor Upong, and for our guest speaker, Dr. Edegbai. Thank you so much. With that, we've come to the end of today's meeting. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at our subsequent meetings. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.